Hi, I'm going to do an introduction here on how to use a spreadsheet in order to calculate expected value and standard deviation. We're going to be using the example from the worksheet expectations there, the raffle time example with the raffle queen and snapping raffle. So the first thing to know in spreadsheet is that this is kind of what it will look like when you open it up. These are considered cells. This right here would be cell B3, cell E5, and so on. So you have different rows going across, and you have columns going up and down. So right here in cell A2, I'm going to put outcomes, and the outcomes here, if there are grand prize is $750, but it costs $3 to get in, then you're going to walk away with $747. The second outcome is $200 consolation prize, but again, you pay $3, so it's $197, and then you lose in the last one, so you lose $3. The next one is going to be the probability of those outcomes, so the probability that capital X equals lowercase x. So the first one, there are 1,000 tickets sold and only one grand prize, so I'm going to say this equals 1 out of 1,000. The equal sign is very important. If you don't put it, then spreadsheet will think you're entering a date, and it's very hard to get it so it doesn't think it's a date. The next one here, well, there are 2 consolation prizes, so there'll be 2 out of 1,000. And then finally, we have 997 out of 1,000. This last column, I'm going to say it equals the sum of B3 through D3. To get that, I just clicked in B3, dragged over to D3, released, and enter. This one right here, this cell, I'm just showing that my probability is equal to 1, so we're okay, move on. So now we have our outcomes, we have our probabilities. To do expected value, we know that it's the outcomes times the probabilities. So here this will be x times the probability that x equals x. To get this, I'm going to say this equals the outcome, so that's B2, times the probability, which is B3. So B2 times B3, and that's going to give me that right there. I could type the same thing right in this cell and then again in this cell, but instead, in the bottom right-hand corner, your cursor will turn to a black cross or black plus sign. I'm going to click in that bottom right-hand corner and drag it over and release. And that's going to automatically enter the exact formula I want in those cells. So then to get the expected value of x, so I'm just going to call this E of x equals, and we'll put that right here. As we know, it's the sum of those products, so equals the sum of these here. Enter. So we get an expected value of negative 185, which makes sense because this is a raffle. People running the raffle want to make money. The next part is to calculate the standard deviation. So the first thing we need for that is we need the difference between the expected value and each outcome. So I'm going to call this x minus E of x. So the outcome minus the expected value. So again, equals the outcome, which is in B2, minus the expected value, which is here. Note that the expected value doesn't change which cell it's in. So when I drag over like I did before, it's going to change these to C2, D2, and it would change this from F4 to G4 to H4. I don't want that to happen on the second one, so I'm going to put a money sign in front of the F, which tells it lock that column F, and then enter. And then when I click and drag over, you can see these formulas still have the F4 here. They've changed, though, what they're subtracted from. We know to get the standard deviation, or variance in this case first, is we're going to take each of those values and we're going to square them. So again, over here I'm going to put that's x minus E of x with the parentheses that direction, squared, which I can say equals this cell raised to the second power. Enter, click bottom right hand corner, drag over, and then we know to get the variance, that is just the sum of all of those numbers. So equals the sum of these guys here. So that right there would be the variance for this problem. to get the standard deviation, call that SDevX. We're going to take the square root of the variance, so equals SQRT, which is square root, and then that one right there. So there is my standard deviation. There's the expected value. So you're expected to lose $1.85, but there's a huge standard deviation because the outcomes are so spread out. So that would be for the Raffle Queen. Sorry, not the Raffle Queen. The first problem there. To get the second problem there, where there's only 250 raffle tickets sold, I could come down here and start typing everything again, but that's not why we're using SpreadSheet. We're using SpreadSheet because we can use a lot of its abilities. So I can copy from here, come down, paste, and now I just have to change my outcomes and my probabilities. So for the first outcome, we can change that to 249 because we spend $1. We can change the second outcome to 149, and then the last one to -1. The probabilities, well, we sold 250, sorry, not 149 here, 149 here, 24 here, and then -1. We sell 250 tickets, so now instead of 1 out of 1,000, we're 1 out of 250. But there are now 3 consolation prizes, so that's 3 out of 250. And now since I've had 1 and I've had 3, so we've had 4 out of 250. Right here, we're going to have the remaining 246 out of 250. Again, my probability here should equal 1. It does. Everything else in my spreadsheet has already changed, adapted. My expected value now is -10 cents, so much better deal. You're losing a lot less money. Variance and standard deviation have also changed. Standard deviation are not quite as big because we're not dealing with quite as spread out numbers. So that right there is a tutorial on how we can use Excel. From here, I could make a new sheet. I could copy paste what I had here, change the numbers. If there's extra ones, I can add in columns to the left or right, depending on where I want to put it in. I can delete columns, and because I made this so it references cells, it'll automatically update that as I work.